could save. But in spite of that, if you can remember Nisarga cyclone, it was moving northwesterly at the speed of 150 nautical miles, 200 nautical miles away from Mumbai, and Mumbai had 2,500 tree falls. So we cannot just overlook the secondary impact of the flood and the pre-monsoon and the post-monsoon cyclones. Of course, flood is there. Then we have landslides. Regularly we are witnessing 1 or 2 landslides. And last year we had 29 people lost their life in two incidences of landslides. One was in Mahul and second was in Ghatkopar. Of course, lightning is not a major issue in Mumbai. Fortunately, we have lightning arresters at many places. So lightning, death due to lightning, we are not reported yet. Tree falls is a major issue again in Mumbai. Last year, fortunately, there was no death toll because of tree fall. Electrocution is another issue which we are facing in Mumbai, especially in the slum area. We have 1 or 2 deaths every year reported due to electrocutions, short circuits, even a building collapse. This year we have identified 386 dilapidated C1 category buildings which needs to be pulled down. But still people are, they are not ready to leave the houses, court cases and so many things are happening in the dilapidated buildings. Post-flood epidemics is another issue. Malaria, leptos, those issues cannot be again overlooked. And chemical hazard, last year we had witnessed 1 or 2 oil spills, even oil spills in the sea, in the ocean. Two vessels were capsized and the oil spills across the sea. So those issues cannot be, overlooked. You can just see here the incidences which even the slums, 50% slum in Mumbai is exposed to floods and all these secondary impacts which I mentioned already. Now to overcome this, this is another which we have already discussed, the rainfall, you can see the trend. Cumulative or intensified rainfall activities are increasing year after year. These, I will not go detail into it because we already discussed yesterday. Sorry. Yeah. So what non-engineering measures we have taken? The most important thing which to control this, because to reach out to the citizens and citizens to reach out with the administrations, we should have a properly state-of-art emergency operation centers, which we have already established in municipal head office. We have a very state-of-art emergency operation center with 7,500 square feet, all the CCTV cameras, footage, and all the multi-tier communication systems to reach out to the stakeholders and to the citizens. So these facilities are available in the municipal head office. Then one more tool which we got in 2005 is the Disaster Management Act. So Disaster Management Act, under Section 25 of Disaster Management Act, Mumbai Municipal Commissioner is appointed as a Greater Mumbai Disaster Management Authority Chairman. But unfortunately, the GR was passed in 2011, but subsequently there was a PIL filed by somebody for, compensation to the farmer. But the court has given order that we have 2 district revenue districts and we should have 2 different authorities. So in Mumbai, as per the honorable court's orders, we have 2 district authorities headed by the additional municipal commissioners. But all said and done, there are good provisions because this act overrides the local acts during disaster. And not only for the response but also for prevention and mitigation, and which we invoked this Disaster Management Act various occasions. Yesterday we were discussing about data sharing. We had the same problem for getting the data from the private organizations, even the hospitals and the private bodies. And we have invoked Section 65(1)(c) of Disaster Management Act, and we have forcefully taken the data from the private hospitals, especially the private hospitals. When we asked for the beds, capacity of the beds and all the facilities in the hospital, they were reluctant to share the data. But we invoked the Disaster Management Act. Even Section 54 was invoked for creating a rumor, spreading a rumors, and it was, the notices were given even a media in some occasions under Section 54. So there are quite good provisions under Disaster Management Act, and which we invoked at various occasions. Yeah. Another important issue is that we are not depend on the central control room. We have 24 administrative wards and each ward has the control room. And every control room in ward are manned 24/7. And these control rooms are established in 2011 with the dedicated telephone numbers and dedicated manpower, and this has helped us in COVID. Especially, COVID, we have used these control rooms as our COVID war rooms, and we have deployed dedicated manpowers, doctors, and they could, interact with the patients. That is how, we have chased the virus, and we have succeeded in decentralizing disaster management activity in Mumbai. Now, very important thing which I would like to share with you is that, as the GIS-based disaster management, what we are looking for, we have established our disaster management department in 1999, and we have quite good amount of data, which was scattered, and we have collected that data and brought at one platform, that is our GIS platform. Now we have 25 layers on our GIS, which was owned by disaster management department. I will just give you one example. I will not go in detail into it, but I will give you one small example. This was, of course, simulated on a Nisarga cyclone. When Nisarga cyclone was passing away, it was passing away northwesterly, more than 200 nautical miles. See this blink you can see. This is the slum pockets, which are seafront slum pockets, which are likely to get affected. Because early warning system, and predictive analysis is very important in disaster management. So we have mapped all the slums pockets in the on the GIS platform. Now you can see this. This is 34 DP. Now on 34 DP, we have superimposed all the hazards. Okay. Now you can see. Now this is the seafront areas. Now you can see further. This is an earthquake grid. I don't know whether you heard about earthquake in Mumbai in 1618. So that Panvel fault is still active. So we have taken that fault and we have simulated the earthquake with the help of IIT Mumbai. Professor Ravi Sinha was part of that team. And we have simulated earthquake at Panvel fracture at 10 o'clock in the morning, magnitude 6.5. And by using PGA and PGV, peak ground acceleration and peak ground velocity, Iyengar Raghunathan's formula was applied. And we came out certain conclusion, and we have created the grid 250 square meter each, 7,700 grids, and those grids are superimposed on a 34 DP. You can see this. Now this 34 DP, you can see now attributes, the IIT Mumbai has minutely done they have not done physical soil morphology. Of course, we are doing the seismic microzonation with Geological Survey of India. But the simulation which they have done, they have concluded what will be the depth in 250 meter grid by calculating PGA, PGB of Iyengar Raghunathan's formula, and what will be the injuries, what will be, there are so many attributes and so many other parameters. Now see, these are the water bodies. Now these are the flooding spots next to water bodies. You can just see the blinks here. Then what is the dewatering pumps? Then temporary shelters, in case of the flood, you need to evacuate the people and ship them to the temporary shelters. So those shelters are also mapped on a GIS platform. Now how to ship them? You need transport system. So BST depots, BST bus providers, all their details are mapped on a GIS platform. Then you need to provide them medical assistance when they are in the shelter. So these hospitals, dispensaries, they are also mapped on a GIS platform. Now all these layers are created on a GIS platform. Now what we are planning to do, now I can show you further also. Now this is the stormwater drainage network. This is the contours which we have already captured. Now here you can just see we have sensors in the Meethi River. Now Meethi River's data is coming to my control room every after 15 minutes. The levels on the upstream. The sensor is installed in the Vihar Lake, okay, in the upstream. Now if suppose in the upstream the level goes beyond, suppose level is more than 3 meter or more than 3 meter, this is a slum pockets which is likely to get affected. The color will be green. The system will show me the color is green, that means they are safe. If the color turns to blue, when the height, the level goes 3.6 meter, then we will have to be watchful. Okay. Then we have to be alert when it goes beyond 4.4 and warning 4.5. Then you have to evacuate the people. Now, where to evacuate these slum pockets? We already have the shelters mapped on a GIS platform. Now, these are the contours. I'll just take this particular this thing, and you can see the stormwater drainage complete network is available on a GIS platform. Okay. Now these are the DAM which we have already done. Digital elevated model is also available on a GIS platform. Okay. Now these are the automatic weather stations. Very important issue is that in disaster management, whatever data available with you has to be go to the public domain. We should be able to share on a real-time basis to the citizens. Now we have 60 automatic weather stations installed all over the Mumbai. And that data is coming to my control room through intranet, not internet, intranet. Okay, dedicated MPLS system. And this data is pushed to the citizens on a real-time basis. Of course, I will just, even this is the sensor data. We have sensors installed at various rivers. Even this NCCR's predictive analysis data, all this data we are pushing to the mobile app, which is freely available on Android and iOS. You know, the citizens can download it. You can see multiple legends are there. Dilapidated building, it takes your coordinates along the periphery of 500 square meter. It will show you which are the flooding spots, which are the police stations, shelters, fire stations. All those data will be available on a mobile app, and it is available in a public domain. We already have this app. We are just upgrading it further. By 15th May, you will get a latest version of this.
So we have 5 more minutes.
Just 2 minutes. Five. Okay, fine. So I thought 1 minute, so I was just, because yesterday the countdown was from 1 minute. Yeah. Now see, this dissemination of information, which yesterday Bide Madam was also talking, dissemination of information, we are using multiple platforms. We are using Facebook, WhatsApp, chatbot, Twitter, mobile app, you know, so that the information will go on a real-time basis to the citizens. We are trying our best to reach out to every citizen, you know. And another thing, you know, in 2005, what we have noticed is mobilizing the resources. Now, from 2006 onward, we have decided to spread the resources. You know, we have 3 teams of NDRF, National Disaster Response Force, stationed in Mumbai. They are also pre-positioned at various places. We have naval teams. They are also pre-positioned at various places. We have FRT of Fire Brigade. So all these rescue teams are spread all over the Mumbai, so that during emergency, they need not to be mobilized. The mobilization will be the issue during disaster. We have our own academic institute we have established, because, you know, awareness to the citizens is very important in disaster management, especially in the landslide prone areas. So we are sensitizing. We have trained more than 1 lakh, you know, people, students, free of charge in disaster management, and we have created a database of all those people, you know, with their contact details, with their this thing. And now we are planning to, you know, as per NDMS guideline, they should be the Apada Mitra. You know, Apada Mitra means we are giving them batches, you know. I'm expecting at least 10% of 1 lakh people during crisis, if they come on a street and help us, you know, for crowd management, that will be a great help to the MCGM and the government agencies. So this training, we are, of course, this is a backup control room we have in the control room. So this training we are continuously imparting to the citizens and various target groups which we have identified who are responding in disaster. So this training is free of charge we are giving to the citizens. So this is how, you know, but all said and done, again, there are 2-3 important issues, you know, which I would like, and I want some inputs from you also and some technical experts. Last year, if you can remember, even a cyclone, in the Amphan cyclone in May 2020, not only slum affected, even the high-rise buildings with the glass facade had water ingress into their flats, and the water has reached up to 5 feet to 6 feet. Even high-rise buildings are not safe in case of cyclone. Second most important thing which we have noticed last year, 12th October 2020, if you remember that there was no electric supply in Mumbai for around 8 hours. You know, even now I am very much worried because we have 100% dependency on electric power supply. I don't know how the DG set will cater us. You know, last year also when there was no supply, we have provided 30,000 liter diesel to each and every hospital because COVID patients were admitted in the hospital. Most of them are on oxygen support. Their PSA plants were at risk. So we have provided 30,000 liter diesel free of charge to the people to the hospitals, they are still, they are not much worried about their DG said backup is hardly for 2 hours or 3 hours. If suppose power supply goes down for 10, 12 hours, like in Germany, there was no power supply for 8 to 10 days when last flood has happened. Even in the Chiplun and Koina and Kerala flood, the supply was not there for 2, 3 days. What is the backup? Those are the very important points which needs to be. And second most important thing is reaching out to the community. Even in a Kerala flood, the people who are isolated, they could not be tracked. They were totally isolated. There was no communication system. The mobile was totally gone. There was no power supply. The mobile was totally shut. And how to reach out to them? But in Kerala flood, at least Google had some solution and Google came to our rescue. Google could track people offline, by the IMEI, and we could track some people and they were then airlifted. So this communication, if gets failed, and to reach out even in a Mumbai to last mile citizens is another challenge. So these are 2, 3 gray areas which needs to be discussed on a larger scale. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
For 5 minutes.
So we have the next presentation by Stormwater Drainage Department. For that we have Mr. Mayur Kshatriya, Sub-Engineer Stormwater Drainage, with a background of Civil Engineering and MBA from Mumbai University, with an experience of 9 years. Sorry, Mechanical Engineering. And Mr. Prashant Ramugade, who's the Designated Officer for Meethi River, with Civil Engineering and MBA from Mumbai University. And he has 2 research paper publications in the Indian Concrete Journal related to the application of predictive tools such as multiple regression analysis and artificial neural networks. Over to you, Prashant and Mayur.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to Narvekar sir for giving something extraordinary information even for us, and that's the major topic today. Okay, so today I'm going to present about actually yesterday our honorable AMCP sir had already talked about so much about the stormwater drain department's functioning and everything. But now today what we have decided, we will go we will give some of the information which is not known to the people. So that will help us to the people and the stakeholders to understand what exactly the stormwater drain department is doing. So with that, sorry. Okay, so let me first tell you what is the stormwater drainage. So stormwater drainage is nothing but the management of the surface runoff. So whatever rainfall which we receive, so we are basically managing that runoff and that rainwater. So there is one small technical term which I think everyone should understand. It's a small mathematical calculation. So how we calculate the discharge, okay, whatever that rainfall which is coming, because we have to handle the surface runoff, so we have to handle the water. So water quantity, that is what we usually calculate, is nothing but it's a product of the coefficient of runoff, intensity of rainfall, and drainage area in hectare. So if you look at the formula, so the intensity of rainfall, obviously it's a nature which we get it from the nature, and the area which is that we usually call it as a catchment area. So these 2 factors are never going to change. Yes, but what I understood from the yesterday's discussion is what the sea is the most impacting factor, and there we have to look into it. Because if you look at the table which is at the down of that formula, so that tells you about the factor changes which what you are having the surface crime. So if you are having like what every environmentalist is suggesting us, you should have the hybrid solution. So yes, we should have the hybrid solution, because if the infiltration increases, obviously that surface runoff will give us a much more better system. So that is what we wanted to take it. Yes. Then let me just give you some of the idea. Yeah, on the right hand side, if you look at the map, we just wanted to highlight about the 4 rivers. If you look at the rivers, all these 4 rivers are originating into the Sanjay Gandhi National Park only. So that is the one part. And if you look at the left hand side, so we just wanted to highlight about what are the causes of the flooding. So what we think we are getting the problem. Yes, siltation in the intertidal zone. If you look at the Mumbai's map, it's surrounded by the 3 sides. So obviously the tidal effect, that gives the siltation to our channels, and that reduces the capacity of whatever development we are doing. So that is the one part. Obviously, encroachment along the banks of the river, that is the most critical part what the department is facing. Then the insufficient holding ponds, maybe with the natural or man-made, whatever we can say. Then the low-lying areas, obviously already sir told about that yesterday. Outfalls below mean sea level, that also had been explained by the sir yesterday. Then the garbage dumping into the stormwater drains. Obviously it is a bit of the social issue, but we have to deal with. Because we have to, in order to maintain our channels minimum runoff capacity, we have to deal with it. Then the diversion of the natural course. Yes, in some of the cases that has been done. So due to whatever would be the reason, but due to the infrastructure development or whatever. But yes, that is the problem. Then the obstructions of the utilities, that is again one of the problem. Then the gravity-based stormwater drainage system. Yes, this is one of the point which the engineering can be taken care of, and there we are finding out the new solutions. Then the ingress of the sewerage into the SW. This is the new domain where the SW department is now working. So you know what the people are thinking that SWD is only looking after the drainage of the surface runoff. So no, we have to now segregate the sewerage what is coming into our system, and we are already dealing it. And we are doing something remarkable work in that also. So need of the augmentation of the existing drain. Yes, due to change of the intensity of the rainfall, and because I told you about the area we cannot change. The catchment area is cannot be changed for the particular area, but obviously with the change of the rainfall intensity, we have to augment our existing drains. And the climatic change, obviously that is beyond our control, but yes, with the hybrid solutions, we can find out some of we can take care of some of it. Yes, and now I would like to just introduce my colleague. So he will just give some enlightenment of what the mechanical part we are doing as of now.
Good morning, everyone. I will just give you some glimpse of the mechanical part of the stormwater drain department. These are some machineries which we use on day-to-day basis for cleaning of stormwater drains. The first one is suction machine, second one is jetting machine, third one is suction cum jetting machine, the fourth one is Firex machine. Next. This one is a recycler machine. This is RODD. This is compact recycler, and this is robotic excavator. The recycler machine, most of you might know what the function is. It just utilizes the same water for recycling purpose. This is amphibious dredger. This is a swing loader machine, which we use to clean the culverts. This swing loader is controlled by remote. So we don't need to go or send our man inside. The swing loader cleans the culverts. This is super sucker machine, and this is super cycler. These are just patterns of different suction machines only. This one is quick response vehicle we are purchasing this year. This machine will be used to attend any kind of complaint on 24/7 basis only. So this is the output of the machines which we used for cleaning. You can see the left side, the siltation in the drain. After cleaning, it looks like this, and we are doing this on day-to-day basis every year. Condition assessment of drain. Last year we have carried out condition assessment of these British era drains, which you can see the first one is brick masonry, second one is stone masonry, and this last one is arch drain, and upper one is box drain. So we identified any structural damages to these drains, and we have informed to our civil wing to rehabilitate these drains immediately. So these are the number of dewatering pumps, as yesterday somebody has said. Last year we have installed 447 dewatering pumps, and this year we will be installing around 438 pumps. This one is something new. Apart from those 6 major pumping stations, we are installing mini pumping station. What happened till now, we were completely focusing on gravity only. But since last year, under the leadership of Velarasu sir, we have initiated this concept of mini pumping station, where we set up the pumping arrangement at the flooding spot only, and we push that water into the channel which goes to the final pumping station. What happens? The flooding spots are around 5 to 6 kilometers from the final pumping station. So the time traveled, time required to discharge that water is around 2 to 3 hours. That's why the main reason of the flooding is there. So our target is to reduce the time of the flooding. instead of earlier it was used to log, water was logging around 8 to 10 hours. Now we are reducing it to max to max 1.5 hours. Sorry. Right now, as Narvekar sir said, we have our SWD layer of GIS, but that information on that GIS layer is of 2010-11. Since last 10 years, we have done major infrastructure works in SWD, which have not been updated in that layer. So we are updating for city area. For city area, we have almost completed, and for eastern and western suburbs, we will be completing in this coming year. So once the final layer will be ready, then we can publish it. If anybody is interested, then we can share with them. So this is the procedure. We have created a mobile app through which we record all around 40 attributes of each and every manhole, like invert level, upstream, downstream, cover, different shapes of the manhole, everything. Then we create a AutoCAD file of that particular road. We superimpose that AutoCAD file on our layer for mapping, and then we publish it on our website. So this is how it looks like. As Narvekar sir said, we have installed around 7 level transmitters at these 7 locations, of which data is directly published at our disaster control room. Protective grills. Since that accident happened of Dr. Sir, so we have installed around 3,700 protective grills on different flooding spots and major drains where the possibility of accident may happen. So we have protected around 3,700 manholes. Thrash booms. We have proposed to install around 9 thrash booms in at different locations. You can see the table. So the floating, whatever comes during rains, it will directly collected and it will be transported directly. Yesterday, I think somebody showed the picture of that thrash nets of Australia. So we have already proposed it, and we will be installing before monsoon thrash nets and thrash racks at these 11 locations. Backrack screens. At 2 pumping stations, we are installing backrack screen to collect the trash which comes along the sea at LGB and Irla SWPS. So yesterday, Velarsu sir already explained the Gandhi Market many pumping stations, but I would like to tell you something.
5 more minutes.
Yes. The difficulties we get in day-to-day projects, you can see that there was around 250 slums through which we have to pass in this network. You can see the railway tracks portion. So this was very challenging. This was quite a challenging project to finish within 4 to 5 months. And also about Hindamata, this concept: hold, store, and drain. This is what we are doing now at holding ponds. We have created 2 holding ponds. The same thing. That's it. That's it from my side. I would like to tell.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. We don't mind to wrap up in 5 minutes, but it's up to you, because it's we think that it's a knowledge sharing platform, so it's up to you. Okay, so this is now, I will just wrap up quickly. So what is the vision 2030? So it is not like that MCGM is not having vision of 2030. Yep. So with the hybrid solutions, we have also identified some of the hybrid solutions. That is, groundwater recharge wells, then the percolation pits. These 2 are, most probably the eco-friendly solutions. Then the underground discharge channel, that we are already working off it, and the spawn city concept. That is what already sir had told. Yes, sir, I just wanted to take you with the pictures of this. You can just see into the pictures. Yes, this is the well, which is in between of, the existing stormwater drain. This you can construct in any kind of household things or any building or anywhere. But the main advantage of this, it is going to put the water inside your confined aquifer. So it is not at only at the ground level, groundwater table. Then this is one of the case study what we are also working on it. That is the Chennai Metropolitan Development Authority, in which they have insisted. Now MCGM is insisting about the rainwater harvesting plants and all. But here they have something different. They are having the percolation pits. So that is what we find it is useful, which we can propose in future. Then obviously everyone might be aware with the yesterday's presentation. It is about underground discharge channel. So I don't want to talk much on it. And the sponsity concept that also yesterday sir had taken. But I just wanted to highlight one thing. Yes, it's a long process, because you have to change with the entire infrastructure. You have to change with the thought process of the people, thought process of the ordinary person, because it's a costly affair. It's not that easy. But at the same time, it's it's an interconnected activity, so it must be connected with everything. So it's obviously it's a low impact development facilities. I just wanted to take some of the the pervious pavement. Yes, pervious pavement can be possible, but it needs so much engineering, because still under it is at very early age of its development. So we need to do so much engineering of it. Then the green roof, yes, that can be possible, but in Bombay it's a bit difficult with we are having the high rise buildings and all. So generally in the rural area that can be possible. Then the surface flow constructed wetlands, yes, this is what sir and everyone is talking about. So we are working on it. And the rain gardens and the eco parking plot. So these is and these are the basic. We just wanted to mention about how it is benefited to the society and all. These are the photographs of that. Okay, so if you allow me 5 or 10 minutes, so I just want to take you with the Meethi River development project, because I think everyone is more maybe interested in the Meethi River. So about the flood and everything. So I will just wrap up quickly. Okay, so after deluge of the 2005, okay, the dedicated authority of Meethi River Development and Protection Authority has been set up by the government, and whatever works we are carrying out for the Meethi River, for the development of the Meethi River, have been carried out as per their directions only. So after I just wanted to highlight 2 things. Yes, there was a technical study done by the MRDPA, and they have directed the CWPRS for their hydraulic modeling. Then IIT Bombay was also appointed for the work, and we know about the Chitale committee reports and everything. So these are some facts about the Meethi River. Okay, the Meethi River originates at the Vihar Lake, and it takes the water of Powai Lake also. And if you look at the map, it's somewhere around 17.84 kilometer long river. Obviously, the 0.84, which is from the Vihar Lake to the Filterpada area, where we are starting point, that is a natural valley. MCGM had never carried out any work in that particular area. So we have maintained the biodiversity of that area. Obviously, the MCGM is having jurisdiction of 11 kilometer. 0.45 comes under Airport Authority, and MMRDS jurisdiction is around 6 kilometer. The major part, what would I like to highlight over here, it's a tidal zone, which is almost 40% of the river is affected by the tidal zone. So that is the most interesting part of the river. So these are some outcomes of the committee reports. So in that, I just wanted to highlight 2 things. Yes, in CWPRS report, they did the 1D mathematical hydraulic modeling, and as per their suggestions only, we are carrying out most of the widening and deepening works. Okay, so yes, the entire work has been divided into the 2 phases. This is the phase 1. You just look at the existing width of the river. Yes, everyone is saying about, yes, we don't need to do the development of the river, why you are widening it, why we are doing this. Just look at the river, just look at the width at the Filterpada area. It's somewhere around 5 to 6 meter. So it's at the origin point, you are having a width of only 5 to 6 meter. So that is one of the critical part what we are facing, and that is what the reason of widening of the river. Then obviously in phase 2, we have done the further widening and deepening of the river. And yes, so now the phase 1 we have already completed in 2006. That was the short-term measures what the MCGM and MMRD had taken. And thereafter that 2007, that phase 2 has been started. In phase 2, we have carried out development like widening of the river, deepening of the river, and construction of the retaining wall and service road. And just one thing, the technical part which I would like to highlight, you just look at the this graph. Okay, the highest tide level of the Bombay is somewhere around 5.15 meter, and the yellow line what you are looking at, that is the bed of the river. So you just imagine it, how much water which is coming into the river, So whenever there is a high tide coincides with your heavy rainfall, so and just look at the right hand side of part of this. Okay, so you have a substantial runoff from the upstream part due to its steep slope, and with that drainage, it's very difficult to handle. Means the river itself cannot be handling the both the situations when high tide coincides with the heavy rainfall. Yeah, this is what I would like to show. Okay, just look at the entire plan. Okay, this is just the cross-sectional. It is just for the information purpose. Okay, we have never touched to the natural bed of the river. Only thing is that we have constructed the slender retaining walls. Okay, and if you look at the foundation, it is hardly 3.35 meter inside the river. So most of the natural and even on that, okay, that concrete also we have filled up with the natural material. So we have kept the filling is also with the natural material. Then yes, I just wanted to highlight about this particular part. Gabion walls, yes, we also like Gabion walls. It is not like that we hate Gabion walls. But the problem with the Gabion wall, you have to understand with the structural part. Okay, if you look at the Gabion wall, okay, it's a wire mesh kind of structure, okay, which is having broken rocks inside it. That is what the general structure of the Gabion walls. But the problem with the Meethi River is we are having a very less and very acute space. If you consider at the upstream part, and it's it's an urbanized area, so I cannot ask anyone, okay, who is already having its house inside, near to the bank of the river. Yes, you just vanish it up, and because I wanted to do the widening. So try to understand. It is also a social problem for us. And if you just look at the right hand side, yes, the Gabion walls. We are having a problem with the entire construction structure, because at some of the portion we have to make the height of retaining wall at somewhere around 8.5 meter. So you have to construct the foundation which will go beyond the 10 to 15 meter inside the river. That will reduce our carrying capacity of the river. So that is the technical part. We are not saying that yes, we don't want to implement, but yes, we have to look into this problem with a hybrid solution. That is what we wanted to say over here. And at the only one point which I would like to highlight over here, it's Gabion walls require very frequent maintenance if you look at the structural point of view. Yes, and what are the outcomes? Yes, till now the MCGM and MMRDA, whatever work we have done, yes, we have increased the conveyance capacity by 3 times, and we have increased the basin capacity almost double of it. So this has been certified by the CWPRS only. Yeah, now this is again the interesting part. On the left hand side you can see the Meethi River. Can you just show me where is the airport? No, you can't show me, because that airport is not visible on the left hand side. But you just look at the right hand side, after widening of the river, yes, you can locate the airport, you can even see the terminal also. The problem is that on the left hand side, if you don't have a confined, since it's an urban river, you have to confine its bank. Otherwise, the major problem what we are facing is, on the left hand side, because that everywhere that land is getting encroach into the river. And, it's again a social problem. We are not saying that this is the solution. But yes, for the short term measures, we have to take this kind of measures. But in future, obviously, with all the experts, we can find much more better solutions. Thereafter, yes, I just wanted to highlight one more thing. Yes, MCGM is also doing after, the pollution control of the river. So it is not like that we are only tackling with the development of the river. Now, in order to control the pollution of the river, we have taken care of, we are intercepting somewhere around more than 200 outfalls, which are contributing the pollution into the river. Can you imagine it is somewhere around 320 MLD of wastewater which is coming into the river. So it's a considerable amount. For that, you need altogether a big kind of STP for that. But yes, MCGM is tapping into it. But obviously, in order to tapping into it, we have to use our existing infrastructure. Okay, we can't waste our existing infrastructure. So in order to tackle that, what we have planned, we are intercepting each and every outfall which is coming into the river. Okay, and we are taking off the garbage of it, and whatever wastewater which is there, that we are taking into care of the laying of the new sewer lines. So that sewer line will ultimately go to our main sewer line, and that main sewer line will ultimately go to the STPs. That STPs which will treat the water, wastewater, and that treated water, some part of that treated water will again go back into the river. Because first you have to understand that the river, you can go towards the river when it is a river. When that water seems to be the you should like that water. Then only you will go to that water. So that is what we are also trying to do it, and that is what these 4 packages are about. Now I will not go into the much more details because due to the short of the time. But yes, this is the just I wanted to highlight. This is the new kind of concept what MCM is trying to do. Yes, this is the outfall which is coming into the river. There is a retaining wall, and there is a dedicated sewer line, and that is a interceptor. So that is how we are tackling the issue. These are the some highlights which the details of the encroachment. That is the major problem with us.
Prashant, if we can wrap up.
Last one second. And this is about the gate pump technology. Sir had already told yesterday, but yes, I just want to highlight one thing. In MMRDA portion, you can say in the tidal portion of the Meethi River, that is again one of the problem what we are facing. We wanted to construct the interceptors, but yes, because of the tidal portion, it's very difficult, to handle both the things, because there is a tidal flow, and at the same time, if there is a rainfall, so only interceptor will not be working. So it is an integration of the gate pump technology with the interceptor. Yeah, and the last thing, okay, so as far as desilting is concerned, that is again one of the very much concern about everyone, every citizen. Yes, MCGM is carrying out the desilting, and in this year we have taken, the bold step, we can say. We are carrying out somewhere around 2,75,000 cubic meter of, or maybe ton of the silt, in order to maintain the channel with the tidal zone. That is what one of the problem. And yes, in order to handle both the different situations, we have introduced the new technology. So on the right hand side, you can see that machine itself. It is bringing the silt from bank within whatever silt which is into the inside the river. It's very difficult to get it, because the width of the river itself is a 200 meter in the BKC area. So it's it's a huge width. So with the ordinary and with the existing technology, we cannot achieve our goal of cleaning of the river. So for that, we have introduced the new technology, and obviously it is very successful. And the best part is it is all visible on the Google also. You can just go to the Google Earth and you can just put up the date, because on the left hand side, if you see on the Feb 2021, you can see there is a BKC bridge. Okay, so can you just highlight? Actually, I'm not having the pointer, so I'm facing the problem with that. But you can just see over there. There is a No, it's on video also. So you can just see on the Chunabhatti BKC flyover, okay, under it, there is a silt, okay, and just try to understand, just one technical term I would like to suggest it, how it affects, that water is not going out of the channel, why we are facing the flooding problem. So it's, it's a basic concept. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. So just look at this. Here it is all siltation, and it is all visible on the satellite map. Yes, and with this added advantage technology, we are trying to achieve our goals.
Yeah. Prashant, can we?
Thank
okay,
you. Yeah,
great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prashant and Mayur. Next presentation we have is from MMRDA. So we have Mr. Deshpande, who's the Chief of Town and Country Planning Division in MMRDA. His background is civil engineering with a focus in town and country planning. His post-graduation is in urban and regional planning from Rotterdam, and he's currently pursuing his PhD from IIT Bombay. He's been the in charge of Meethi River Development Project and has also worked on various projects such as TOD policies within MMR, overseeing regional planning of MMR, worked on the urban design and infrastructure planning for Bandra Kurla complex, has been involved in inception of Line 1 Metro, regulated the urban development along Metro and issues related to land, and also been part of some rental housing projects within MMR as well. I would like Mr. Deshpande to...
Yeah, good morning all. Thanks WRI for having this apt discussion today. I like to stick to the time schedules, going by the linear progression which we had 15-25, so I should end up in 35. But I also see that most of the discussions we would have it in an interactive way. So I believe in having more discussions, and we have learned people sitting across with a lot of exciting questions on them. So we should have an interactive session which is also written there. And thanks to Ramgode and Mahesh, we started with what is disaster. And then we saw how a disaster can be mitigated by having a good effective stormwater. and I'm going to talk about policies, about what make them. The sequence should have been like this: policies, then stormwater, and if we both fail, then disaster. But now you know the worst part of it. What happens when it takes place if he fails and I fail? So you know all the best stories now. So that's going to be interesting sequence what we did with. And I hope my right presentation is before you. I'd just like to rush through because most of the Meethi River development slides are covered by Ramgude. And I want you to look Meethi in a different perspective, which has not been talked by both of my earlier colleagues. And that would make it a little interesting for all of us in the room. Yeah, let's not talk. Sorry. Yeah, I'm off it. I can use the pointer in case it is required. Yeah. So Mumbai, as we all know, city of opportunities, city of challenges, city which is getting transformed, city which never sleeps, it's always active. So working for Mumbai is always challenging for all of us because 24/7 city. Now with that and 100% urbanization, it has its own challenges. I'll not talk much about MMRDA, madam. We'll go through. Yeah, next slide, please. And the ambit of MMRDA projects. Again, when MMRDA talks about big ticket projects of infrastructure, we also do Meethi River Development Planning Authority, and MMRDA does about Meethi River, apart from other projects which are not the focus of today. But just, yes, MMRDA has an ambit of various projects. That's what we wanted to tell. And Ramgude covered it. It's all started about 2005. And when the Meethi River received 944 millimeter of rainfall, coinciding with the highest tide, extreme event, 1 in 1,000 years event, combination, will never happen again. And I hope Mahesh is not ready for that at all. And if he has done something good between what Ramgude and me have done, we should not go to Mahesh anytime in the future. So that's what, Mahesh is the last resource. Huh? Though it was the first speaker, he is the last resource. So we hope that if Ramgude and me are effective in handling Meethi, then we don't go to Mahesh. With all that, what we mean is, how effective is from 2005 till 2022 has the river carrying capacity increased? He told twice and thrice. That is carrying capacity, discharge capacity, holding capacity is all increased because we have done effective deepening and widening, and I have some videos to show it to you. That is something new which we didn't have in these two presentations. Apart from that, what we also did is the bed slope, the slide which you talked, and I think there's a slide in my presentation too, which you can see the Ramgude showed the red curve, the bed slope. What does that bed slope do? The gravity plays onto this, the Bernoulli's principle plays on it, and the velocity of the river has increased. When the velocity of the river has increased, the water flows much faster to the sea now than it was flowing earlier. And who did this tell us? We have 1D mathematical model. What is 1D? In CWPRS, that is Central Power Water Supply in Pune, if you visit the model, and for all of the students and academicians who does, we have all the Meethi River flow with the tributaries on the ground at a particular scale. But what do we play with that? Because the length is fixed, 17 kilometers. The width is fixed, which was in 2005. And unless the mic flood software, which allows you to play with the width, the only thing which is one-dimensional which we can play in the depth to see at various intervals and combinations of the flood intensity of the river seawater intake and the rainfall, what should be the depth of the water in the river and in the adjoining areas, because we have terrain which is fixed. So the terrain model, that is why one-dimensional comes from. So 1D is that dimension which is variant. And as against this 1D which is changing, with the fixed width and the fixed length, what should be the depth of the river and the slope of the river to take the same amount of water much faster to the sea to dispose of? So this is CWPRS 3D. And then what does Chitrai committee report from IIT report and the CWPRS report again? CWPRS reports considers 1 in 100 year for the entire river length. What is 1 in 100 year return period? If the same amount of rainfall happens every 100 years, what is the phenomena? What should we plan for that? The Chitrai committee report characterized this river into two segments. One is the flood zone, which is like a high tide zone, which is for the first 8 kilometers from the Mahim up to the point where the is all talked about. Let me go through there. Yeah. And you can show some videos down here. I'll talk to one graph here. Not yet. This is all history, we know this. This one. So, what did Chitale committee do? Chitale committee told us that this is the Mahim and the water flows here, which is having a high tide effect. So, for in this area, you consider that the flood occurs every 10 years, which is very vulnerable. So, 1 in 10 years is the return period for this period. For this period, for this portion, which is 11 kilometers, and this is the Karina airport. For this, you assume that the widening and deepening should be with a contingency that the return period is 1 in 100 years. So, for a combination of once in 100 years, this deepening, widening has been done, and deepening, widening for this portion is done, assuming that it is every 10 years. Now, what does this mean? This means that your sections on the southern side, this one, has to be more wider, because every 10 years you are likely to have this rainfall. But here you are saying that every 100 years you will have this rainfall. Again, something very peculiar characteristics of Meethi. Where does the Meethi water come from? Meethi is not a perennial river if the gates are closed here at Vihar and all the stormwater is 100% efficient. Where do we get our runoff from? If all the 100% Mumbai is covered with stormwater, then we don't have a runoff here. So, this river has a characteristics of only when the monsoon floods the Vihar lake, we start having rainfall coming down through this area. All other 8 months, other than these 4 months where river water floods from Vihar lake, we have the runoff which is coming from the adjoining areas and the surface runoffs coming up. Now this brings pollution. Now, had this river have its own aquifer, and one of the cross sections which Ramgode showed as a hard basalt rock, we don't have any infiltration water coming up. We don't have the infiltration which is coming out from the grounds. We talked about heat island effects, and I exceeded all those slides because it was touched yesterday. We have all these concrete covers. The water infiltrate comes from your roof, goes onto the road instead of stormwater drains, and comes very fast. Had it been all green cover here, what would have happened? There would have been the same amount of rainfall. It would have absorbed in the soil. The time of concentration, the first formula which is stored would have been much more. The water would have come easily, which was reaching in 5 minutes, would have reached in 15 minutes. What would have happened? The rain intensity, which is sparse over a period of time, would have allowed the water and my cross sections and my bed slopes to reach the same amount of water much faster to the sea. This would have been a natural way of seeing that the flood water dissipates into the sea. What has happened? We have all the buildings which have come up. We have all the pavements coming up in the premises now. We have an effective stormwater system. So the water is collected faster, transported faster to these points. And when it is likely to dispense, if we have a high tide, then the water goes only a submersible flow. The submersible flow velocity in hydraulics is much lesser than a non-submersible flow. Therefore, we require more time to disseminate. Now, what has happened because of climate change and the adaptation study which has highlighted us and the IPCC which has highlighted to us, we are having more intensity, short span rainfalls. Had the same amount of rainfall we receive in now 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 1 day, which is passed over 4 months, again Mahesh would be a happy man. But why Mahesh is having extreme stress? Because we need in 24 hours rainfall, which is about 50% or 40% of the 4 months period, isn't it, Mahesh? So that has all what we call about extreme events, which is coming because of the climate change. So now this becomes Mumbai's flooding problem a multi-dimensional thing. Can we all plan for that intensity, the stormwater drainage? No. Is it affordable? No. Do we have that pipe dimensions to put it? No. So what are the mitigations which we can do? So we don't only talk about carrying capacity of rivers and carrying capacity of stormwaters and the climate change. We all have a responsibility to do the mitigations. How does every citizen come into picture? If he's shown about the trash collectors. If the water flows faster, the stormwaters are not choked up, and there is no high tide, or if we know that the high tide is at 4 o'clock and the rainfall is happening and the same amount of water flows much faster, our holding carrying capacities are increased and ready to absorb the more rain. All these areas which are holding plants should be ready to absorb when the heavy rainfall is going to happen. Before that, they have to empty. How will they empty? They have to drain wedge faster. Just I'm trying to tell about the drainage capacity, carrying capacity and basins in a simpler format. I have slides for all of those. And some of the challenges are known. Let me go through some slides. This is all we all know about. I need not talk about the 7 islands, the flow of Meethi, the hydrometric area, vulnerability, temperature effects. I all covered on through this. Heat island effects. This is the interesting section. We talked about flooding. We talked about 40% of annual rainfall in 24 hours. This is the flood spots, and I'm very happy to learn from Mahesh that now this is all in GIS. Now, he has sensors on the ground, he has GIS into that, he has mitigation teams, they are all alerted, all in place, disbursed. Now, these are the maps from the Chitrai Committee report in 2005. But now this is in GIS. What does this mean is, and with the stormwater pumps and gates all installed, this flood cost must have drastically reduced to the numbers which we have now. And for the next presentation, I'll borrow the map which is from 2000 flood, which was spots were identified and what are today. I think drastically we have reduced from 200 to maybe 30 or 40 spots in Mumbai now. That's what we feel. They are monitored, they are identified, there are teams working on the ground, there are pumps working on the ground, and we are all taking care to see that even those half an hour, 1 hour, high intensity, trouble to the traffic, etc. are zeroed down. Everybody on this table, whether it's MCGM, MMRDA, MRDP or the government, are trying to see that Mumbai always runs. It's always on wheel, it always keeps on moving, and there are no stoppages because of rainfall intensity in Mumbai. Because when we say that we are in a global city, we should always see that it's functional 365 days. It's as efficiently as it is efficient in non-monsoon days also. And that's all our target is. And why? Because these plots have come down, because we talk about GDP, and when we published a study to the Water Commission, we told about 250 crore rupees is the GDP every day contributed from Mumbai. And if we see as from 2005 till today, it's about 1,000 crores of GDP. And then if Mumbai stops for 1 or 2 days, that's the collateral damage which we cause to the city. So city should not stop, the train should not stop, the airport should not stop, the traffic should not stop. And that's why, if at all there is heavy rainfall, Ramgudi comes into action first, and then we hope that Mahesh doesn't come into action. This is what we talked about. I would now request what MRDP has done through various meetings and guidance Ramgudi has covered. We had the master plan in place, and we have taken various actions. One of the things what I wanted to, this is one of the model at CWPRS, the increased depth, increased width, increased thing. And what has the velocity increase brought down? NARI conducted a report, and we found that the BOD levels have come down, COD levels have come down, dissolved oxygen level has increased, aquatic life, flora and fauna has increased. All that is all because of deepening, widening of Meethi rivers, having retaining walls, gabion walls, protects it from encroachment on both sides. We have the same width of the river in the monsoon and not in monsoon, because if we don't protect the banks, there is high likely of encroachment taking place, and then disaster would be happening. And he told about Disaster Management Act, and it was also used to remove the people who are having their encroachment on the banks, not only for themselves, but if they choke the downstream, the upstream gets flooded. So we had to use the Disaster Management Act also to remove the slums on the banks of Meethi River. I'll borrow 2 or 3 more minutes from you. And we did this various integrated impact studies, and what we found is the coverage which is increasing. Again, IIT doing the terrain modeling, and this shows how the transition has taken place and how the water area has increased, how the flood carrying capacity has increased. These are again the graphs. I am leaving all this presentation for all of you to see. We have also carried out some exercise of cleaning the river, some new experiments of collecting the solid waste which is floating on the river to see the increased speed, and then using triple R recycling waste, collecting all the way, converting into plastics and giving back to the ecology again. Some of the highlights which again Ramji talk is about increasing the depth, increasing width, increasing velocity twice and thrice, and removing the encroachments. There were about 12,000 encroachment, 9,000 removed and resettled, about 1,000 remaining, some on court matters, some on because of the Disaster Management Act, which is now into coming, but there are some court matters, so which ones you remove that. About 80 to 90% of the work is already completed. And that has been again on the mathematical model tested, and we have found it satisfactory work being done. Now, apart from this, I would like to now show before the challenges some videos which you have, just for all of you to see how it exactly looks. We all talk through slides, but let's see if we have some video to show how it looks like. We have some videos from the starting point, yeah? Great. If it plays. Ram, going to help me in identifying which areas is this? I don't know.
Mumbai was very different from what it is today. The reclamation process of the 7 islands was initiated by the British. The islands that make up Mumbai were brought out from these waters.
Many years ago, the water supply on the island city of Mumbai was contaminated. They needed to search for a place in which to build an artificial lake which would supply the city of Mumbai with good quality drinking water. And so, the process of building the Vihar Lake began. Subsequently, 2 other lakes, the Tulsi and Powai, were dammed. It is the overflow of these 3 lakes that forms what we know of as the Meethi River today.
By the end of the 19th century, a number of small-scale industries sprang up along the land reclaimed from the river. Soon slums began to spread out on either sides of its banks. The pristine river was now becoming a victim to pollution and dumping of sewage waste, slowly turning her into nothing less than a sewer. Mangroves which once lodged on the river slowly disappeared. In the midst of waste, excreta, industrial toxicants, sewage, and animal waste, the Meethi River lost her serenity. A city too busy to acknowledge her existence. There was an impending disaster that the neglected river had in store for Mumbai.
दुपारी 2चं टायमिंग होतं. 2 वाजता ते पाणी पाऊस एकदम मोठा आला. ते 2 तासामध्ये असं झालं की मुंबईमध्ये पुऱ्या पाणीच पाणी झालं. कुठं हलता येत नव्हतं. आणि आम्हाला ज्या टायमाला नदीच्या किनाऱ्याला आलो तर आम्ही आमच्या रूमच्या वरती 1 फूट पाणी होतं आणि आमचं काहीच राहिलं नव्हतं. आमची मंडळी मुलं ते सगळे पाण्यामध्येच होते 3 दिवस. आणि मिलिटरीने ते बोट आणली होती. बोटमध्ये बसून आम्हाला अलीकडे पलीकडे नेण्याचा त्यांनी प्रयत्न केला.
A massive death toll of 914 people, total rainfall of 944 mm in 24 hours. Around 20,000 cattle perished, 250,000 houses damaged.
Software with the rainfall data and the channel data that was available to us, and based on the studies we found that the waterway under the runway needs to be increased from the present 27 meters to 51 meters. It was found that 2 additional channels of 12 meters each width were constructed.
There were recommendations which were made to widen the river course so that the river will be able to carry forward the flood water, avoid pipelines below the bridges. Wherever it is possible, they tried to make through the mangroves, and they were able to make a pathway for the water.
8 years after the deadly floods that shook Mumbai, the time had come to assess the initiatives that were taken by the authorities to address various issues and take stock of the efforts to mitigate the adverse impact of rampant development. Undertaking of the Meethi River widening and deepening work was a huge challenge for both MMRDA and MCGM. This included tackling settlements not only on the banks but also on the beds of the river. Around 11,000 structures got affected, 4,000 have been settled, and 3,000 ineligible structures had to be removed. So there was a human angle to the entire development of the Meethi.
आम्ही पहिले राहायला कुर्ल्याला होतो बैल बाजारला. बैलबाजार मिठा नदीच्या प्रकल्पात पाणी तिथं भरल्यामुळं आम्हाला तिथून MMRDनं वाशी नाक्याला आणलं.
About 4,500 PAPs, project affected persons from the Meethi River were rehabilitated by MMRD. Most of these PAPs get self-contained 225 square foot house which has a toilet inside, the water tap is inside, which results in a very good improvement of their living conditions as compared to what they were living in the slums earlier. The women feel more secure and their privacy is maintained. Children get better environment for study, and overall there is a health improvement also in the PAPs because of the better living conditions.
त्या 15 लोकांना आम्हाला स्टॉल दिले MMRDनं आणि ते स्टॉलमध्ये आम्हाला धंदा करायला त्यांनी शिकवलं आणि सांगितलं. मग आम्ही त्या पद्धतीने धंदा करून आमचं पोट भागवतो. मुलांची शिक्षण चालू आहेत आणि त्यांचा खर्च भागण्यासाठी आम्ही त्याच्यावरच आधारित आहोत.
On the left hand side, what is going to see on the right hand side, you will have to tell me the difference what are two. Somewhere is before and somewhere is after. We start from Bihar lane, end in Maimkuri, and you will see how the changes have taken place over a period of 20 years. This is how the Meethi River begins from the Bihar. This is to the Sakinaka area, or not yet? Maybe we can increase the speed of the video. Oh, you have it as it. And then we'll have to appreciate the airport very quickly, and then we'll go to Mitigations. But if I have this zoom images for entire 17 kilometers, so before and after images.
Maybe we can just skip a little bit.
Something which you need to know about the Meethi River entering the airport, and you all know that the airport was flooded because of floods there, and now the channel had to be widened. MIL and MCGM have done this, and for 1.5 years the airport had a restriction on the runway. So the runway restriction, length restriction gives less weight to carry. So all the airlines had to carry less weight or empty seats, so that they can stop at the point which is to be stopped is not changed, but the starting point where you take off and run off has been changed because the 450 meters is the reduction in the runway length. So that had a huge impact on this, but we had to do it for the city. Yeah, there's an echo coming out. You can see how the things have changed. RDA from MCGM at this point, where the widening can be seen and appreciated. This is a BKC road internal building, and now we're going to, this is the Wakola bridge coming, this is the BKC connector which was earlier being constructed there, near the Mine Nature Park. This is the Wakola also simultaneously seen along with the Meethi River, which is the main nala which again takes the entire amount of the 800 hectares of airport to the Wakola. There is a widening of the Wakola. There's an echo which goes place, so that's what I was avoiding it. the entire airport drains into Wakola Nala, which comes into the confluence in Meethi River in Bandra Kurla complex, which drains into Mahim.
If we can wrap up, maybe we can
This
open
is the
up for
confluence.
discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would like to go it to the last point 1 minute, where I want to show the confluence just before this, where the this is again a little bit behind us. This is again, yeah. So this is the place where the confluence of Meethi takes place with the sea at Mahim, and then we have something which is called a 0 point, which is the Mahim Causeway. But when the we wanted to increase the velocity of the water which is flowing from the entire 17 kilometer into the sea. So in this Mahim Bay, we have gone to the rock cutting method and removed the rock because there was an outcrop. Outcrop is something when you see like this, there was a rock or a speed breaker within the beneath of the water which was there. So we had to remove that to see that the water goes faster into the sea. That has also been removed. I think, we are seeing at that spot. You can see the Mahim Bay, and then we can go a little faster from here. This is the spot which I talked, 1.2 kilometer in the sea. This is the reclamation, and we'll see, faster, we can go faster. Yes, this is the Bandra Worli ceiling which was not there, and now here. Yeah, that's it. So we have seen how the Meethi has transformed. We saw its pristine origin. Then we saw how the Mumbai's economic activities and industrial pollution made it little bad and polluted, and how the efforts of government again has rejuvenated it to make it today. The deepening, widening, the stormwater drainage, the river basins, all what we have studied through the three of the presentations which we had today. And now I think with WRI we can open this floor for questions.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I would like to open up for the audience if they have any questions to,
Thanks for those lovely presentations. You all can hear me? Yeah. It's really nice to see the work that is happening across all the three organizations. My common question to all of you in all the three departments is that, when we make map visualizations, when we draw maps, they construct a reality for us. For instance, yesterday in Mr. P.K. Das's maps, we saw so many kilometers of stormwater drains, so on and so forth. One of the things about maps that is being spoken about by several people is that these maps that construct a reality for us have been drawn in fair weather, which is not in the monsoon. Okay, what will it take for us to start changing the drawing of maps such that we start representing the monsoonal weather, and can they become an important information system? For instance, in the disaster management cell, in the storm water drainage cell, the river gets drawn as if it is in the winter and the summer months. But why not draw it as something which it seems like in the monsoon? And why not that map become the base for everything? So is it possible to change our visualization, and what would it take for us? That's my common question to all the three organizations. That is number one. Number two, I was quite in the stormwater drainage presentation, the coefficients of runoff were very nice. I'm just wondering if there is a link of that in terms of institutions, let's take the case of housing. If you want to create something to percolate water within housing societies, what is the connection of that to the repairs fund and the housing and the sinking fund in the management of society? So that links between the maintenance and repairs, how can one look at those links over there? And the third one for MMRDA. There are two kinds of questions in the presentation that you showed. It's kind of a lot of effort that goes into planning. And you know, the first question I'll ask directly, what will it take? Like, you know, we often use the word encroachment, and we also use the word that people need to get rehabilitated. What might it mean to rehabilitate Bandra Kurla complex elsewhere, which has been spoken about as something that has really created the problem in that place? While we talk about very small parcels of land occupied by low-income groups, fair enough. They've occupied and they have to be rehabilitated, but the bigger parcel has been occupied by two kinds of reclamations. One is Bandra Kurla complex and the other one is Bandra Reclamation. So what might it mean to rehabilitate those? Because if we don't do that, the sea is going to, or the river in some time is going to take that land over, which is the argument that the large-scale data is making in the future. So what might it mean to rehabilitate that? Yeah, I have another question, but I think I'll leave it for now.
My presentation which I don't talk for the questions, because we saw Mumbai historically was 7 islands and we started reclaiming long back, and we saw 7 islands being connected. So it's not reclamation only in Bandra Kurla complex or Bandra Reclamation which we talked about, which is known only very 100 years down the line, which we know, or 20 years in Bandra Kurla complex. We do studies for CWPRS and see what should be the high level, high tide level, what should be the filling level, what should be the type of reclamation. We did not reclaim all the things which were available. It was done very scientifically and there has been channels which are kept there. It is a myth that flood occurs only because of Bandra Reclamation. It's not the true. We have historically proven that there has been connections between various islands and the landfill being created. As I told in the very beginning, Mumbai is a city of opportunities, dreams, GDP growth. Everybody likes to be in Mumbai, so we need land, we need built-up area. Along with it, we need efficient infrastructure, both physical, stormwater, drainage, transport, as well as city needs to grow and keep updated everything. Now, if all those things as a holistically have to be efficiently done, these problems would have been less. We had some initially from 2005, we had some issues about prioritization and coordinations between various Government of India, Government of Maharashtra, within Government of India's prioritization. But now the things have been settled. We didn't have much access to the maps and information then, as Mayurji told in his presentation. But we now have a good amount of access to the information. We are in a much better technically and scientifically way of handling the floods, risk and maps. Talking about the first question of maps, we have now the satellite imagery in place. Initially, we didn't have the, we had only the collector revenue maps into picture, but now we have satellite maps, we do GIS mapping, we do georeferencing, and the width and the plot areas all are mapped into, and the 2034 development plan is proudly on this, which is superlaid. So if you see the map in different types of seasons, as you wanted to put it in monsoon season and non-monsoon season, the width of the nalas and rivers would look the same because it is mapped in the satellite and the boundaries are marked and the revenue boundaries are also marked. So it won't make it different in a different season. However, if you want to see the wet index, what you wanted to see the monsoon maps, I don't know geographically or in GIS you could have when it is a real-time app-based solution now, you could always show the water levels to various users who are using a map. So that's much possible. That answers most of the questions what you want. But I have because the question is for all three, and so you can respond after all three response. So let my colleagues also say something on this.
See, as regards maps are concerned, see the base map which you are using is 2004's GIS base map is given to us by the Planning Commission of India. It is a very high resolution map. See, the data which is mounted over the map, it's a regular practice. You know, we are updating it regular by using a satellite imagery. Now, as you said that we have to capture the data from during the monsoon. Is that right? So that you can see the floods and all on a map. So that satellite imagery has the capability. Now we are procuring that. It's a very expensive process. For every week you can update the map by using the satellite imagery and do some change identification. That we are actually in a process of developing it. But the map, and again the data, because as I said that it's a very high resolution base map, we have a very stringent SOP from MOD. But in spite of that, we are sharing the data by masking certain attributes to academic institute, which I already shared whoever asked for the academic purpose. So sharing of data from the GIS base map is not a problem.
You can, if you wanted to add up something in that question, then please, that will be better.
Yeah, my point was not about, sharing it with citizens, but my point was about taking the monsoonal maps as a reality. Because what we work is with revenue lines, which have become maps and boundaries. Okay? What might it mean to move beyond those revenue lines to think of them as ways of thinking about future strategies, not just to share data with us? That's number. And so don't take me wrong, I'm a planner too. I recognize the value of your effort, and I recognize the position that you sit in and how difficult that job is. But the issue at stake over here is that the way in which we might be dealing with complexity in another 15 years might mean that it is not only a few pockets, but major areas which have been taken over from the sea, including colonial reclamations of the last century, might be taken over by the water. And what might it mean for state planners to think in that long term? I recognize the value of your effort, so don't take me wrong about saying that I have a few slides in my pocket, then I have a few questions more too in my pocket.
The first thing I must compliment and really say that you guys have so much of information and so much of effort. I think one more department you need, and that is the Department of Publicity. I think people don't know the amount of effort, amount of information that is available with you. And I think that's one of the big things that the kind of apps that you're talking about. I think it's just that, for the first time, I am understanding these things, and I'm, being concerned about these things. I am also getting to know about it now is a problem. And I think you need to communicate this, because I think that's something which is very important. Coming to your point of history, and what I think Rohit is alluding to, is that we draw maps as somebody's perception at a particular point in time. And the question is extremely fundamental to the idea of a map. Let me give you 2 or 3 cases of history. If you, and since you are mentioning history, I'm sure all of you know that at one time there was a passage from the west to the east across where Somaya College is and all of that place. There used to be a water passage. That's one of the reasons why there is the Bandra fort and there is the Mahim fort. Because they were the control points, right? And the navigation was through such shallow water that there used to be a pilot boat that used to take the big ships across onto the other side. That's history. Also, one of the arguments being made is that because there is always a difference between water levels of seas at different times, it was one of the ways that Meethi could exit either to the east or the west, which we blocked. We are imagining the Meethi to be only opening to the west. It never was so. History, sir. Let me also talk about the 7-island theory. In my opinion, I can question this myth. Because if you read Mumbai's Varnan, which is one of the earliest documents, there is a description about walking from one island to another, or one space to another, through shallow water and a rocky terrain. And so where did this line come from? You would see land at times, you would not see land at times. Who drew this line of these 7 islands, right? So I think we need to question these things once more. And we need to understand these from this perspective, that there are certain embedded imaginations that have been created. And that is what I think Rohit is alluding to, that maps actually are probably fair weather documentations of some of the things. And I'll give you a little bit of another sense of history, because the British always called the monsoon the foul weather. The locals knew how to live with the monsoon. The British did not. So for them it was foul weather. And therefore mapping probably emanated from that way of thinking and not embracing monsoon as an integral part of. We need to restructure our thinking, I think. So that's the perspective that I want to bring. Now, I have a whole lot of questions. So I don't know if we have the time, but just give me a minute. So one of the things, and that's a question for you, is the shallow water and the land reclamation that we have done. The rock, bedrock. So the question that comes to my mind is, did we reinvestigate the percolation capacity of our soil? And is the coefficient for Mumbai derived differently? Because the soil will soak in no time, in particularly in those spaces which we have reclaimed. Right? That's one part. The other part, and this is a big worry, and that's a question for you, that, it's like when we talk of disaster, we talk about events. But what about the cancer that prevails in my body all the time? And that's the pollution of this water system. It's a perpetual disaster, in my opinion. It's a disaster that's ongoing every single day. And I think that's something which we need to really look at, because the health of the soil is the health of the land, right? And I think my bigger worry is, what is the state of our soil of Mumbai? And so it's not just the ability to drain the space out, but what does the river do, and how do we see it? We have ultimately made it into the backyard of the city. So I think some of these questions do come to my mind, and even kind of looking at coefficients and stuff like that, I think is very important of how we see them. There are many more questions, but I'll just leave this at these couple of questions. The other, what should I say, the elephant in the room is, does the city have the ability to take care of its garbage? Because, believe me, much of the land post-British, we don't know how the British created so much of land. I have actually been very keen to find out which hills did they cut. Because a huge volume of filling of land, and we don't know which hills we lost. Okay. But today, most of the slums are all on garbage. We all know it, right? So what's the soil of this ground? It becomes extremely important question. And the larger question is, we can blame plastics. We can blame people throwing garbage in it. But what is the city's garbage system? I don't know. Where do we dispose it? Maybe thankfully we should be thankful that some of them throw it in the rivers, or I don't know what, but it's a very serious problem, right? And land is created out of garbage in this city right now. And these are very serious, ongoing, continuing problems, which to me are disasters actually. It's an illness within the system which needs very, very definite answers. I think that is some of the things that I just wanted to kind of point to. Is there any method by which you control silt? For example, I saw some images of the tunnels that you showed, and you showed us how well it cleaned it up. But how do you get the information? Are there sensors? Do you have sensors within them? How do you get the data of
CCTV camera. We put
I
inside.
see. No, you have it regularly. I mean, you have it installed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just taking the opportunity to answer some of the questions. So as regards to the garbage, I will take it from the garbage only. So yes, we have started with, right now we have started the SW department, since it is not the responsibility of the department, because in MCM we have different departments. So as far as garbage treatment and that point is concerned, so obviously there is another department. From that we have to take the input. But yes, as far as SW department is concerned, yes, we are started with the collection of the garbage, and we are looking that problem as our problem, because ultimately it affects to my flow. So yes, we have already taken the initiative. That's what Mayur had shown you, the trash booms and all. And in Meethi, at the downstream area for the Wakola River and for the Meethi River at the downstream area near the BKC area, we have already installed the trash booms. And our main concern is to save the mangroves, because prior to starting of the mangroves only we have installed the trash booms. So we don't want it to harm the nature also, and we are also taking steps into it. But obviously it's what I can say, it's a 60 and 100 years of mistakes what every citizen has been done. So we can't expect that yes, in a one night and you can get it done with everything. So it's not possible. We are also working on it. We are having plenty of the limitations, but still we are trying our best to solve it. And we have already started with it. And definitely in the future, we also, because what sir had rightly said, yes, MMRD had already started with the segregation of the waste also. So yes, we are also looking into that point also. Because, most of these particular technologies, which is already available in the globe, they should suit to our requirement also. Because if you go into the West, you will not find this kind of garbage. So, the segregation itself becomes a big task. Because I have seen that plant so many times, and even I'm wondering, yes, how difficult it is to get it, segregated each and every item at the source. So it's very difficult task. But yes, we are also finding out with the solutions. And yes, obviously we need something, from the people also, like you, they will come with us, and it's a social movement. So okay, we need your support also. We need your ideas. So so that will help us for the Mumbaikars. And second point, what you have told about, the drainage system. Okay, so what we have shown in our presentation, earlier the methodology and the thought process of the department was to drain. But now we have changed our, thought process of just holding the water, okay, trying to store it, and then we wanted to try to drain it. So whatever that excess water would be there, that would be drained. So obviously, in order to maintain that, we are also looking up the possibilities of infiltration pits and all that, what I have already shown into my presentation. But yes, that is taking some kind of it's engineering. So we have to work on it, and we have to, whenever we wanted to give it to the public, okay, maybe in the DP or whatever way we are thinking of. So obviously it has to be a solid concluding part. Okay, it has to be vetted by the technical people. It has to be vetted by people has to accept it, because if I'm giving you something which is half of the knowledge, so obviously you will not accept it. So in order to acceptance level, it is still under consideration, and it is still under development. And as far as that point is concerned about the sinking fund and all, obviously it's something different question of our particular part, because that is all depend upon after the development only we can talk about it. So, and there is a DP department, to be very frank, so development plant department, so they are taking care of it. And what you have rightly mentioned is, about there was a possibility, like, I don't know about it, but yes, there was a possibility of the Meethi River might be having, the Mahul catchment, because in one of the report, in the technical report, even I have also gone through it, yes, there is an interconnectivity between the Mahul catchment and the Meethi catchment. And yes, we are also looking into it, how well we can, connect it. So it is, technically also, we find so much similarity, because if you see the ridge line, okay, the division line of the Mahul catchment and the Meethi catchment, the LBS road which is getting flooded. So if you look at the catchment area, that is what, some kind of engineering is required. Because when we see the catchment border line, so yes, we are also feeling that the part of the water which is already in the, the Kurla catchment is flowing into the Mahul catchment. And it takes so much length of, traveling of it. So we are also looking into that possibility, how well we can connect these two catchments, so, better runoff would be there. So that is another point. And as far as mapping is concerned, yes, when you say map, okay, we engineers are immediately thinking that, yes, these are the maps. So that is obviously, but I understood what is your concern. So it's, we have to have a different perspective. That is the only thing, okay? Yeah, I do agree, I do. That's what we are saying, it must be the hybrid solution. Yes.
Hello, Mr. Ramgude, I have one question for you.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to know, during 26th of July, there was a heavy rainfall to the tune of 944 mm or something, and Meethi River was overflown. So I just have a curiosity, what was the contribution of flow from overflow of this Vihar Lake in the total MFD of the Meethi River?
Yep. So, sir, for as far as this point is concerned, yes, I do agree. People mostly think that, yes, there is a lot of contribution of the Vihar Lake and Powai Lake towards the Meethi River. But, try to understand, because I'm working with the Meethi since last 7 to 8 years, and I've seen the Meethi. Okay, so first point, whenever Meethi get floods, it's because of the Powai Lake, not because of the Vihar Lake. Because Vihar Lake is having a huge capacity. Generally, the overflow of the Powai Lake starts in the month of the July. And if you see to the Vihar Lake, it will start after somewhere around in the August. So if we take the event of the 26th July, so obviously, yes, at that particular day, Vihar has also started with the flowing. But the major contribution where the Meethi is getting problem is because of the Powai Lake, because of it is having a very low capacity. And there is one more point with the technical matter. If you see the weir, okay, so the weir of the Powai Lake is much more longer. So what happens whenever there is a discharge which is coming from the Powai Lake, okay, so because of having a long discharge point, the water which is coming out of the Powai Lake, it contributes more. That is the one point. Second thing, try to understand Meethi is having somewhere around 30% of entire Bombay's catchment. So we can't, simply neglect that, yes, it is a very less river. No, it is having a huge catchment.
One second, what I want to say, whether it is contributing 30% of total
Yes.
discharge, that overflow from the Vihar Lake.
No, it is the entire catchment of Vihar, Powai and Tulsi is somewhere around 1/3 of the entire contribution of the Meethi River.
Meteor, inflow
Yes.
into Meteor. So
Yes.
what I mean to say, if we can provide this Vihar Lake by providing additional deepening there, because I don't think raising will be possible. The entire stretch has to be, then deforestation and all these environmental issues will crop up. To avoid that, if we enhance the storage capacity by additional deepening to that 20% or 30% volume of what is contributing initially in the very initial stage, like in 18 July or something, we start Vihar Lake flowing. So if we can reserve that itself in the Vihar Lake, so I am expecting that something of that line can be given a thought of enhancing the storage capacity of Vihar Lake itself, so as to arrest the initial flow for a time being of 1 month or something. Later on,
Yes.
The entire stretch of the Meethi River will remain capable of absorbing the inflow at its stretches. So initially, when the monsoon start, by the mid of July, Vihar Lake start overflowing and contributes to the Meethi River, and Meethi River gets totally occupied with the runoff. So that sort of angle which we can think of, or any consultant have given thrown some light on this.
एक फक्त ऐड कर दो with your due respect, sir, I just wanted to inform you one thing. Yes, the reservoirs of the Bombay belongs to the HE department, and
that is what
no,
technically we are discussing. I know that.
I'm just adding up into that. So they have already started with the study of it, and they are doing the possibility. They are verifying the possibility whether that desiltation of Vihar Lake is possible and up to what extent they can do. So that is already under consideration. That is what I.
Whether we can increase the capacities of the reservoirs, that indicates that whether we can increase the flood carrying capacity of the Meethi River, Wakwala Nala, drains, etc. Now let's identify this problem into 3 or 4 different parameters. One is the desilting, which you do every year, which increases the existing capacity or makes it more efficient. Second is the cloud formation and the rainfall, which is dependent upon the weather conditions. And however efficient you are, what is the amount of rainfall has to be properly gauged. Thirdly, it has to coincide with the tide levels. So you have to have the accuracy of tide level prediction perfectly matching with the cloud formation and the efficient system. If these three meet properly, then you are 100% efficient. If one of the parameters don't match your expectation, you have an extreme high rainfall and a high tide, but the most efficient and the clean system won't be sufficient, because please understand that we are not designing it for the extreme event. We are designing it for 1 in 100 or 1 in 10 periods, wherein that whenever this extreme event coincidence occurs, there will be some amount of water which will remain for the minimum amount of time. That time is what we are all aspiring to reduce it to half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, so that during that time the disaster is minimal. But if you ask me whether we are designing it for zero, practically Mahesh, we can't say it, because we are neither designing stormwater for the capacities to carry for the extreme event. But we are saying that we want to clean it before monsoons, we want to make it more super efficient, and these events are 1 in 1,000. So the coincidence of the highest high tide with the most clogged drainage system and the extreme event is very, very rare. So in all times, if you have seen from 2005, the scale of the disaster is absolutely gone down, because the efficiencies have increased. And one thing what we want to do is we want to sensitize all the citizens that as the solid waste is dumped into various places, you dump it in a place and which spills over through your runoff to the river, it clogs the systems. If it clogs the system, the efficiency comes down. Secondly, we are also collecting something in the Meethi River which is coming from the high seas. Every day, twice it is coming to us. So we are having boom barriers to collect what is left in the high seas, which none of you, me, Mumbaikars may contribute. We have to collect it and treat it and give it back. So please try to understand the scale and complexity of the problem. It is not only Mumbaikars who contribute to the solid waste. It is something in the deep sea which comes to us, flows back to us through the 7-8 kilometers, which is collected, lift up, treated and left back. We do desiltation. We do removing of the silt because something comes from the sea to us, something comes from runoff to us. Fortunately, the solid waste efficiencies have tremendously increased in the last 5-6 years, and there is very less of floating material which comes to things. There is very less of clogging materials, and you can see if you have history of looking at the streets in the month of April, May, when they are cleaning the chambers, now the volumes have started looking low. Because there is very less plastic now coming into the system because of sensitization and a lot of NGOs and people working around this, collecting, and collection has increased, segregation has increased. So efficiencies in the systems are helping resolving this issue, and all citizens are helping it. So thank you for all Mumbaikars who are helping solid waste department, disaster department, MRD, that we are all being more and more efficient in delivering the goods to this and the services to the city.
Like people have joined us online. It is about, the question is regarding the, the app information that is there, if that can be integrated with the Google system itself and make it more public, is that
yeah, actually we are working with the Google. We already integrated some information with Google about ongoing road works. You know, the Google can notify you in advance. If you are traveling, say, from particular road, the Google will notify ongoing work. So we are integrating with them all the floods, like if there is a flood-like situation, traffic diversions, the Google will notify you well in advance so that you can take the, take the other route. So that we are working with Google.
Right, okay. And there's another question, I think for all the technical people in the room, regarding is depending on the infiltration of stormwater for a low-lying coastal city like Mumbai during monsoon for stormwater management feasibility. A cluster of smaller overflow ponds around Powai Lake have been filled up or getting lost even now, resulting in overflow into stormwater system. These need to be protected. I would just like to extend this as well, where since yesterday we've been talking about the infiltration and all those aspects. Question for the technical expert researchers as well regarding the groundwater situation, the geotechnical information. Does the city has that capacity to even absorb that much water that we are talking about?
Yeah, as far as this question is concerned, see, that's what I have explained, in infiltration, there are 2 points. One is a deep aquifer, so there you have ample of space where you can go into it. And if you look at since it's a coastal area, so obviously the groundwater table of this particular Mumbai would be very high. So we have to identify certain portions where we can go into the deep aquifers, where you have ample of space to store the water, and that will help you a lot. But likely what I mentioned, it's still under the consideration and it is still under the development. So we have to give some time, okay, to identify the right process and the right measures to take care of that.
Right, thank you.
I have a small question.
Last
Narvekar,
question,
sir.
please.
Yeah, a small question to Narvekar, sir. Sir, as you mentioned that you are already dealing with natural and man-made disasters. So, in view of Mumbai Climate Action Plan, we have identified two more risks, sea level rise and temperature. So, are you looking at any plans in future for dealing with heat waves or with the effect of these 60 automatic weather stations to give any early warnings to citizens?
Yeah. Now these 60 automatic weather stations are all weather parameters. It has temperature, it has barometric pressure, it has the wind speed, wind direction and the rainfall and the rain rate. All this data is available to the citizen 24/7, 365 days on mobile app. So heat waves, the temperature, like this year we have noticed 40 degrees Celsius temperature in S word. So we have immediately notified. You get a notification when you download the app. Okay, so this information is available on the app, and we are also issuing some advisory in case of the temperature exceeds 35 degree. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
No. It's collected 24/7, 365 degree. You want the data, it's available. You can come anytime, we'll share the data. It's there 2006 to 2011, 27 automatic weather stations were there, and then we have increased it to 60. All the data, 27 and the 60 is available in the control room. You can come anytime, we'll share you. You can even share the email ID, we'll mail it to you. Disaster Management MCGM. It's available on Android and iOS both.
Sir, I have few concerns and over here, sir, sorry. Okay, anyway, so I have a few concerns, a little bit of, thought process around this. I mean, based on the conversations yesterday and what I'm seeing today also, I feel that the understanding of the geography and geology of Mumbai is somewhat less, is my understanding. I feel that we need a little bit more on the technical side of things, the geology, because one thing is that the sea is very much less understood. That's what I'm feeling here. The sea is Mumbai is not just a coastal city. It's actually a sediment sink. That's what we have observed so far from satellite images and models. It's all showing that it's a huge sediment sink. That means it's bringing a lot of silt from that itself. And the actions of high tide and low tide cannot be seen just from the flow of a single river, etc. So a comprehensive geological and geographical study of the city has to be taken up. That is one. I see that why I'm saying that there is an information gap over here is that every map that I see over here or every big technical analysis, it's all focused towards Meethi River. I didn't see much from any of these reclaimed areas in South Bombay or anything around that. There is not enough amount of information. Like what Sahil was earlier pointing out, I wanted to emphasize the groundwater. Without knowing these, we can't put in any solution. How do we say that we can talk about these kind of solutions, that we want this kind of a solution, without knowing those information, and particularly with respect to the tide and everything around that? Because one concern I have, maybe I didn't study Meethi's tide that much, but from my previous studies, I'll say that you have been deepening the Meethi River close to the mouth, and in other cities, what we have noticed, in other places, what we have noticed is that when you deepen it over there, that means the effect of the tide will be increased a little bit more. And it will also cause headwater erosion, meaning that the bed of the river also will come down slowly. And more, if you had been dealing with 7 kilometers right now, in a few years you'll be talking about 8 kilometers where the effect of the tide will come. Now, these have to be very clearly studied. That is my first concern. Second is that from the observation, there is huge amount of data. I love that. But I have a small feeling that one data set is not talking to the other data set itself. I'm not talking about agencies. Different data sets talking to each other itself, I feel that there is a huge gap. And so I'll suggest that it has to be made a little bit more comprehensive. Yesterday during my presentation, I told about that we need to step it up. And also we have to make it a little bit more public, not just select academic institutes or organizations like WRI, it should be made a little bit more wider. The circle has to be made wider. I mean, I've been put part of this TN, in Tamil Nadu, they have this weather task force and everything. In that, we are not limiting those people to be just from IIT Madras or Anna University or the big institutions alone. We are trying to bring in local champions who can talk about weather, geologists and everything. I mean, every expert we are trying to bring. So many subcommittees have to be formed with respect to each of these things. For example, weather dissemination, for example, with respect to data processing and GIS and everything around that it requires. And the data has to be made open. It's not, sharing it in a website is a different, showing it in a website is a different thing when we say that data is open, right? So data is open means anyone can take it and process it. Seeing it in website is not open data. I mean, from these concerns, I mean, I'll say that. And one suggestion there, actually, they talked about Google and everything. Actually, instead of Google, again, through these, I mean, you need to have a smaller subcommittee of folks from journalists and everything. And you can create an API which can be pulled into any third-party application, not Google, not BMC's application, but it can be any third-party application. If it is made, it can, I mean, it can reach a little bit more. And I'll suggest, I mean, I hope you might have, but I'll suggest you have a close network of 20, 30, journalists and everyone, so that you can.
Yeah. I think we have shot like quite a few minutes in that sense. I think this was a really great conversation, lot of learnings. Not only the data gaps, but what Raj mentioned, data sets needs to talk, the communication of the work that even MCGM is doing needs to come out as quite an important point, the aspect of understanding or acknowledging the wetness factor. And the geological condition of the city is also one aspect. We can see that SW department is working forward with the solid waste management, and also other departments is a step happening right now. So definitely something to work on towards, I would say. I think we should move to the next session, and it would be about the citizen stories, let's say. And we have Mr. Sitaram Shelar who will be moderating this session along with, yeah.